Welcome, second graders, to the fun part of this project, but also kind of the confusing, kind of crazy thinking of how you have to, it's almost like flipping your brain with how you drew your picture to how you're now going to make it out of the thicker colored paper that I gave you. All right. So first thing, you have your drawing. Your drawing is your tool. You are trying to remake your drawing out of paper. You're not gluing anything onto this piece of paper, and you're not cutting anything out of this piece of paper. When you are all done, as you'll see in a little bit, is you're going to have a drawing just like this. So you'll have your drawing, and you'll have a picture that is made out of colored thick paper with that'll be pretty close to looking exactly alike. It's just that this one will be made out of all sorts of cut paper. Okay, so again, you are not doing anything to this. You are using it to help you size, meaning kind of make the same size shape and remake this. The whole process of us cutting out the paper, gluing it down, is about the next 2 to 3 weeks. So this is not something that you need to finish in today's class. I don't want you to. And we'll actually just focus on this planet and probably these back parts today. I'll show you more, but that's really all I want you to focus on, the things that are at the bottom or things that are in the background today. Again, I'm going to show you everything so that for the next 2 or 3 weeks, we can work on it. All right, so make sure that you have your sheets of paper that I had with the whole packet. Make sure you get out this piece of paper. It's kind of a tannish cream colored, and it should be thicker. The reason that it's a thicker paper is because we're going to be gluing things onto it, and it needs to be able to handle all of that thick glue that you're going to be putting on. All right, so you will also need a scissors and a pencil. All right. So first thing, if you have a planet, all right, you're going to be making that first. When you are making something, when you drew this, you drew the rocket probably first, and then things that went behind you added after. When we make this out of paper, we actually have to go in the reverse. We have to make the things that are behind first and the spaceship last. Okay, so I'm going to explain that. Anything that is in the background or behind needs to be made first. If we don't do that, if we make the spaceship first and we glue it down, when we add these parts that are behind the spaceship, they're going to cover it up. Okay, so you'll notice you can't see the spaceship anymore because I covered it up. You want to glue the things and cut out the things that are in the background first, and that way when you glue your spaceship on, your spaceship goes on top. All right, so we're going to talk a lot about layers. Now, this is a longer video. I just want you to sit back and watch it first. Like I said, you're not going to get a lot done the first day. This video is really important. So when I am making the moon, all right, first thing I want to do is I want to use my picture, our drawing, to kind of help me figure out how tall something is. So what I do is I take the bottom of this yellow paper and I kind of rest it at the bottom of the paper. So you'll see that the yellow paper is lined up with the bottom of the drawing. And what I'm going to do is put a little mark right here. And that mark tells me the highest part of my moon. So that's kind of to show me that when I'm drawing that curve on here, that's going to be the highest part on here. Okay. Now, I'm also going to check if this goes all the way from one side of my cream paper to the other. I believe I cut them that way for you guys as well at home. So all I need to do is basically look at the sides here, and you'll notice I don't go all the way down to the corner. I gotta go up a little bit. So I can put a little mark at where that is, where it goes off on this paper, and where it goes off over on this paper. Okay, so now I'm going to extend this line. I could even draw it all the way across. Okay, and now I'm going to start here, curve up to that line, and then I'm going to come down to where I put this other mark. And that's going to be my curved moon. So now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut that out. Okay. Now the fun part is that you can kind of put it on there and see that it is pretty much the same shape. Now you'll notice that mine's a little longer, but that's because this paper is a little wider. Okay. So now this goes over here. I have a moon here. I have a moon here. Now I made these craters, right? These craters, I don't want to draw on here. I want to make them out of paper. Now, if I make them out of a different color, they're going to stand out a lot more than if I used yellow. I have this yellow paper, right? And I don't want to throw that away. I want to keep it safe because I'm going to be using this yellow maybe for the windows on my spaceship, maybe for some of the stars that are in the background. So you want to keep this paper safe. Okay, so I have my blue paper here, and I like to kind of draw when I'm working on this close to my drawing, because I want to try to draw a circle that is about the same size. And I know it's hard to see with the pencil. Let's see if I got a white colored pencil. Okay, so you'll notice pretty close to the same size. And now I want to look at these other two. Draw one there, draw one there. And I like to kind of work all the way over in this corner so that I save this paper, because that's really important that I have enough paper. I can't get you guys more. I mean, I could, but try to use what you have. You got more than you need with you. Okay, so I cut that little piece off so that I can save this big chunk, put that off to the side. And now I'm going to cut out the first crater, and I like to put it in the same spot or close to it as what's on my picture. And there we are. So you can see I have 3 craters. Now I have 3 craters made out of paper there. All right, so now to gluing. Don't cut out a ton of pieces and then expect your brain to remember where they all go and what they're all part of. I've cut out 4 different pieces of paper, the moon and then my 3 craters. That's a good amount to then get glued down if I can. All right. First, I want to check, is there anything behind these things? Nope. They can get glued down right away. My spaceship isn't behind the moon. It's not even touching the moon, so I'm good to go there. And you can do things kind of however you want. You could, I'm sorry, I got to make sure I'm in the picture here. You could glue these craters onto the moon and then flip it over and glue the moon down. I am going to first put it on, and I'm going to glue the moon first. So you'll notice I have it so that it's matching here, higher on this side over here, lower on this side. So once I have it where I want it, I'm going to flip it over and add glue. If you're using a glue stick at home, if that's all you have, I guess that's okay. They don't work as well for everything staying down. If you have a glue bottle, please use it. And you'll notice all I'm doing is putting a thin outline around the outer edge, but not all the way to the edge. I personally like to kind of smooth out the glue because then it sticks right away. You'll notice if you don't do this, your pieces of paper will start to kind of fold up, and you'll have to push them down like 10 times before they glue. So now I'm holding it either with two hands or one hand, and I'm matching up the bottom corner. And then bringing it down. And then this is where I like to kind of flip it over and rub it down. Again, the thinner the glue is, the quicker it dries. So that's why I thinned it out with my hand. Okay. Now I'm going to glue down my craters. So I look at the picture, try to put it in a similar spot. And with these, because they're so small, I'm not going to thin them out with my hand. I'm just putting them on there, and I'll probably have to push them down a couple times. Again, if you got glue oozing out all over the place, try to use a little less, or scrape some of it off with your finger before you put it down. All right, so I've not used a pencil other than to draw. I'm not drawing on my details. I'm making them out of paper. That's a really important step. So now that I have my planet or my moon down here, I could make all of these other things in the background, but I'm going to start working on my spaceship. And not my spaceship that we know is a spaceship. I'm going to work on these rocket boosters in the background, because they have to be put down first before I can work on this. All right. So I'm going to show you how I can use my drawing now to make this rocket booster. Kind of have to think about how we made it originally. We made it using shapes. So I'm going to pretend that my rocket, my big one back here, goes down to about this far. Okay, so I'm going to take my red paper, I'm going to put it down here where I think it goes, and I'm going to then put it right next to this, and I'm going to put a line where I think the top of the rectangle, okay, this rectangle right here is. Okay. Then what I can also do is put it up at the top here, and now I want to show how wide that rectangle should be. Right. So I have a mark here, and I have a mark up at the top. And I'll use a pen to kind of show you what I'm doing. Okay. So I'm drawing down where that line was, and then I'm going to go across. Okay. And this rectangle is going to be the rectangle for that background rocket booster. And this is kind of how I make every single shape on my picture. I find a piece of paper that's going to be big enough, and I use the drawing to help me mimic that shape. So notice how that covers up the spaceship. That's why we don't want to make the spaceship first. All right. So that looks like a good size. Now I'm going to grab another color. So I have this blue. And first I want to make sure that it's going to be the right width. So I'm going to be making this triangle part now. And I could make it out of red paper. I'm just not going to. And so I'm marking on the edge. I have it lined up on the edge here, but see how it sticks out a little bit on here. So now I'm going to make a little mark there. And then I'm going to put it on the side here and make a mark where the top of that triangle goes. All right. So what I could do is make a little box. So a line that comes across that way and a line that comes down this way. And that triangle is going to fit inside of that box. Okay. So I'm going to go from this corner, I'm going to go all the way up to the top of that box, and then I'm going to come down to that corner. Okay. Now looking at them, they should be pretty close in size. I can kind of check. Yep, that looks good. And then I like to cut out that square to save that big piece of paper. Put that off to the side again. And now I'm going to cut out the tip of my rocket booster. Okay, so now these can start to kind of come over here. So after I do that, now maybe I pick another color that I haven't used yet. Maybe I'll use, I don't know if I gave those of you at home any white, but I could make them out of white paper, and I'm making these because they're in the background next. Okay, and what I like to do when I'm making something that is the same shape and size, where I have double, is I like to take my piece of paper and I like to fold it in half. You can ask an adult if it's hard to fold because the paper's kind of thick. So now I have this folded in half. And what I'm going to do is I line it up at the bottom here. Okay, now we're making that rectangle again. I put a mark at the top of the rectangle. It's a long, skinny rectangle. It almost looks like a crayon. And then I'm going to match it up on the side. And I'm going to put a mark here. And that tells me how wide my rectangle is. Okay. So I like using a ruler sometimes. You don't have to. You can just draw it how I was drawing the other ones, but sometimes it's just nice. And this is just a piece of cardboard. Okay. So that is my rocket. And you can see, looks like it's going to be the same size. So now I'm going to hold both. See how I have it folded in half? I'm going to hold both. And now I'm going to fold it and cut. And again, if it's too thick and really hard, maybe ask an adult, because this is thicker paper. But now I have two pieces of paper that are similar in size and shape. So you'll notice that this kind of comes down further. That's why we see that. And I'm going to grab my blue again. I have to make two triangles. So this is where I could fold this again, or fold another piece of this paper. Use my drawing to tell me how high up it goes, and now how wide. So now I'm going to make that rectangle box, and then inside of that rectangle box, I'm going to draw that triangle. All right, so we're almost done for today's video. Again, any scraps that you think you're able to use again, please keep. Even these little ones that I'm cutting off. Put them maybe in a bag. So I am breaking my rule of make sure you glue things down after you have more than 3 or 4 pieces. But I really want to show you kind of how this whole thing is going to come together. So all right. So looking at, I like to kind of put them next to each other. You'll notice that the rocket kind of comes over on a slant. So now I want to kind of make sure that that's going to work out. Okay. And these are a little bit lower. Like that. Closer. So these are kind of the first layers. I could cut out another color that's a little skinny rectangle to make these little lines. And then after you get all these things glued down, then you can start to think about your spaceship. Okay, so we're going to pretend that I glued all that down. And when you're doing something that's really complicated, has lots of parts, you have to go back to thinking, how did I make this shape? Because if you drew it correctly, you used shapes for every part of it. So I've done a little bit of work ahead of time. This rectangle is the actual spaceship. Okay, so that comes to about here, and I'm probably going to move all this stuff around because it's not glued. But after I have these pieces glued down, I can glue that spaceship part on top. We have the top of the spaceship, another triangle. And then the wings, remember how I folded the paper to make these triangles? I can do that with these wings, except for this is what's called a right triangle, meaning that it has kind of a corner piece and then a long diagonal. And so I cut it out like this. And then what I do is I use one like that and one like this. And these become the wings. Okay, so now we're seeing how we're making those using those shapes. I have some rocket boosters that I made out of white. Again, folded the paper so that they were the same size and shape. And then you can make all of your little details and little things and put those on top. So all of these little shapes and then your background. So that was a lot of information, like 20 minutes of information. So you guys have about 15 to 20 minutes to now start your picture. If you're anything like my students in class, my in-person students, you're going to get maybe one little thing done. If you don't have a planet, maybe you start on your back rocket booster. Okay. Do not start on the thing that is in front of everything. You got to start on the background. Okay. So the things that are behind. And then after about 10 or 15 minutes, stop, clean everything up. Make sure that you save all of your little scraps, even something small like this. You might be able to, or you might want to keep, put them in a bag. Keep all of your other really big pieces with those for next week when we add more to this. All right. Good luck, everyone. If you have any questions, please send me an email and ask. Otherwise, please make sure you watch this whole video, which if you're listening to me right now, you probably have. All right. So good luck. Have fun.